first I'm joined by LBC's reporter Fraser Knight, who has more on this new top tier of British policing, our so-called FBI. Morning, Fraser.
Morning, Matthew. Look, the fact of the matter is that the way that crimes are committed in the country is changing. It has been changing for decades. And right now we've got a system where there are 43 different police forces across England and Wales doing things their own way. So the idea here, as part of this biggest shake-up of policing in 200 years, is to try and smoothen out that system, to make it more centralised, have an upper tier where they can investigate some of the more complex and serious crimes, terrorism, fraud, regional organised crime gangs, and what they are doing cross-border across different forces. It's being dubbed Britain's FBI, not by us, by the government itself, to try and to lift the burden from some of those local police forces so that they can focus more on tackling things like drug dealing, antisocial behaviour, shoplifting and phone snatching. It's something police chiefs have been calling for a long time. You said this debate has been going on for ages. And one of the people who is supportive of it is the Met Commissioner, Sir Mark Rowley, who, of course, under these proposals, would also lose counter-terrorism responsibility.
If you've got a overly bureaucratic, complicated, convoluted, sort of spaghetti system, all of that complexity sucks resources away from the locals. If we sort out all the national arrangements, our ability to counter national and international threats improves.
Now, LBC can also reveal this morning that as part of this new National Police Service, there's also going to be a new National Riot Squad commander who will be hired to oversee the response to large-scale protests and public disorder, protests that are spreading much more quickly than they ever have and getting more and more violent. You'll recall, of course, the 2011 riots, the 2024 Southport riots that spread across the country as well. That new commander is going to gather intelligence and direct what's called mutual aid. So that's when police forces send officers to different areas where they don't have enough resources. There's one source who has suggested to me under this commander, there may even be a situation where you get something like the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans' decision being made, where actually, because that commander is able to look at this centrally, they might have been able to find a way to make sure that that advice, of course, if it had been followed, all of the genuine intelligence that was out there would have been able to go ahead. Now, Nick Smart, who is from the Police Superintendents Association, has told me this, though, needs to be done right.
What is being proposed, if that makes a more efficient response, a better use of resources, we are being broadly supportive. What we would say is whoever that individual is would need operational independence, because we are very clear there cannot be political interference. And we have seen that in previous incidents.
And of course, indeed. And of course, because this is coming as part of a much wider white paper of reforms, we're expecting the Home Secretary to outline them tomorrow. It does come with risks, though. You know, she's going to slash the number of local forces, bring in this centralised force, hoping that it will lead to less work, essentially, for those in the front line.
It's difficult to get really accurate data. And I was looking this morning before we came on air, and when it comes to these sort of really serious crimes that this sort of national police force, the FBI, is going to look at, we're talking about a couple of % of crimes. So for the vast majority of ordinary people, 97, 98% of the crimes they involve, your burglaries, your phone snatching. So for people in Cornwall now, their local police station is in Exeter, which can be a nearly 3-hour drive, and we're talking about essentially replicating that model around the country. So you could be hours from the central police force HQ, hours from there.
And Chief saying that you need to find that balance right. You need to make sure you still have that local presence and this national thing. But if you also think about some of the, you talk about a lower percentage, but those really complex crimes, they involve digital aspect. 90% of crime has a digital element to it. They're really complex to investigate. And so ministers are hoping that this new national force can take that burden off the local police forces so that they can get on with the volume crime.
We shall see. Great reporting, Fraser Knight, as usual. Thank you. Let's bring in Michael Matthews now, author of The Riots and a former Met police officer. Nice to see you, Michael. What's your... there's sort of two stories we're wrestling with concurrently here, really. The establishment of a British FBI, for want of a better word, and a massive reduction in the number of police forces operating around the UK. Could I ask you about the latter first? Would 12 or 15 police HQs be sufficient?
Good morning, Matthew. No, I actually think it's a terrible idea. They've done this over the years. There's now 43 police departments in the UK or England and Wales. There used to be a lot more. Every single county had its own police force. Cities had police force. You had ports police. All the railways police. I mean, Royal Parks police got merged into the Met recently. So there used to be a lot more than that. And what we find is that what we found in the Met is that when they amalgamated divisions into boroughs, police stations were shut down, which meant police officers had to parade at a different place and not in their local areas. And then they started merging boroughs together to make super boroughs. And this is what they want to do with police forces in England and Wales, is merge more forces together, which I guarantee is a cost-saving exercise, which will shut down police stations. And there's already been a lot of police stations shut down across the country. There'll be even more. And police have to parade from somewhere. So they have to go to a base, which will be even further from where they have to patrol. So getting there will take longer. Getting back will take longer. So I understand why they want to do it, but I think it's a terrible idea for local policing.
I have to say I share those concerns. What you've just described is how, before I moved down to the West Country, I lived in central London, and that is, you've literally described how local policing changed in my area. My local police station closed. We went up to Hampstead, that police station closed. Then we were at Kentish Town, that police station closed. And I'll be absolutely honest, I have no idea where my final police station actually was to go to. So,
Matthew, I was a Kentish Town police officer. And Kentish is still open, actually, but Hampstead shut down. Yeah. Hampstead shut down, and the first the local population knew about that was when they read about it in the paper, because the station was getting sold. And it's gone forever.
Devil's advocate time, Michael. You and I both know the nature of crime is changing. Fraser, our reporter there, alluding to, the 90% of crimes have some kind of digital association. Could it be that the changing nature of crime perhaps means that we require fewer police officers on the street, even though many voters, that's actually what they always call for, and that actually having more centralised police looking over data in offices is perhaps the way to counter 21st century crime?
Yeah, certainly criminals are becoming more sophisticated in their ability to use computers and AI and digital technology. I think there is a good aspect to centralising certain roles in policing. So public order, having one commander overseeing a national public order is great. Counter-terrorism, I used to be a counter-terrorism officer. I worked at Scotland Yard. And so we used to work with different forces. We worked with West Midland Police. And it always seems strange to me that we're all doing our different things.
Granted.
We should all be working together. So certain roles like terrorism, maybe even homicide departments, being centralised makes sense. So you can sort of like share those resources. But as long as local policing, the policing that most of the public will see day to day, the policing that most of the public will only ever need, as long as that stays local, that's fine. But it does make sense to centralise bigger departments or bigger roles, such as public order and terrorism.
Michael Matthews, I think you and I are on exactly the same hymn sheet on here, which is kind of reassuring. And Kentish Town Nick, by the way, they looked after me when I had some problems about 15 years ago, and I've always been very appreciative. So thank you and your colleagues there.